And welcome back to a new episode of Geek Centurions. Me, your boy Eli.
Me, Joe.
And we're here to talk about the return, the most anticipated return in all of entertainment. John Cena's turning heel. I'm sorry, we had to talk about it.
Oh, we're doing wrestling now? Oh, God, I'm not prepared to this at all.
No,
I
no,
mean, that's
no,
not,
no,
I mean,
no, no,
it's,
no, no, no,
okay,
no, we're not doing that.
okay, thank God. All right,
No, no. Yeah, so what we're going to be talking about actually is the return of Daredevil in Daredevil Born Again. So recently at this point, the first two episodes are out. We will be talking about it. And by the time this episode comes out, I will say episode 3 or 3. I don't know how the release schedule is. But they are releasing it every Tuesday on Disney Plus. We are not sponsored by them, but God, I wish we were.
I mean, it'd be decent money, although I feel like they'd be forcing us to say only good things about
Only
the show.
good things, I say.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been a long time because we have most, well, I mean, you have the more important people from the original Daredevil Netflix show, right? Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio,
Deborah Ann Wool. I'm getting the actor's name for Froggy, which makes me feel really bad. We're about to say.
That's, I guess, before we dive deep in, spoiler? Yes, no, maybe so.
I think by the time this comes out, it'll be a day before
the next episode.
So I think we should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So we should be fine. Like we're so this is gonna be like a full on review. This is more of more or less our thoughts on these first two episodes. There's a lot of conversations going around about it. There's a lot of mixed bags in a way, I would probably say. Right? Some people are feeling it's like not living up to it. Some say it's a good return. So basically, it's gonna be our thoughts. You know, I'm been a Daredevil fan for a long time. Grew up with the movie. I love I love the Netflix show.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite. I still hold it up as one of the best comic book shows in a very long time. Like season 1 is fantastic. Season 2 is solid. Season 3 is in many ways.
Yeah, because I mean, for if I remember correctly, the Daredevil show was the whole reason why we got Netflix in the first place.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, yeah.
Like, Netflix was, definitely popular around the time, but like once they announced it and we saw like everything coming out of it, we were like, we gotta get a Netflix account, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, and like I've been reading up on some of the Frank Miller stuff. I've been reading up on the Chip Zdarsky stuff, a little bit of Brian Michael Bendis. So like may not be the big and like may not as well informed as others, but I really appreciate Daredevil as a character. So him having his show back, I was excited. I was looking forward to it. I may have different opinions than others about this, but that's just how the world is. We all kind of have to accept that. So you've only seen the first 2 seasons, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I will preface me saying that I only watched the first 2 seasons. I did not watch the third season, mainly just out of, I think it was more sort of just, I guess I didn't really have sort of the time, and then I kind of just lost interest in a bit. And not to say I didn't like say, season 2, but I think part of it was just, because obviously around the time, right, like Netflix, Marvel was essentially setting up the Defenders show, which turned out to be kind of mid. And then after that, I was kind of like a bit checked out. But I still heard very good things about season 3. It introduced Bullseye. There was a lot of interesting, good things I heard about in season 3, and maybe, probably maybe when the season ends, I'll probably go back to watch season 3 so that way I can get a full picture. Granted, from what I understand, you don't necessarily need to watch any of the old stuff from the Netflix Daredevil series, because I think they're treating it as a somewhat soft reboot.
Yeah, it's like still considered canon, but this is kind of like a soft reboot, and you kind of get that feeling in the first episode with the way things play out. So I could see why someone would say like, oh, you need to know this much for that story, and I'm like, No, I feel like you can just kind of go in this without that much knowledge because like you would feel more appreciative of what's going on with some certain characters, but this feels kind of like its own unique thing, its own new thing.
Yeah, like if you were, I feel like if anything, like if you really wanted to like dive back into the original Daredevil, I
Hmm.
mean, Netflix show, then I'd probably just,
You also got to know the fact that it's like different style, different
yeah,
everything. Because this you can totally feel this is meant to be slightly different, but still adhere to the core values of the show.
yeah. But I was just gonna say that, like I guess if you wanted like a feel of like what it was like, definitely just watch season one of the original show, and I think that should be enough of a primer to get you into Born Again,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, like maybe at least season one.
Yeah, 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 definitely season one, I
Hmm.
believe. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you want to just, I guess we can just talk about um, just the opening to the show itself, right?
Yeah, that
Like,
was like okay. So I love that first 15 minutes of that cold open. That was such like really good. You know, going back to what made Daredevil,
hmm
the one shot take, the way these characters act with each other, seeing all these actors just bounce off. It just seems so natural. It's one of the things that everyone really loved about the show. The only negative I feel like a lot of people would have is the use of CG. Like for me, I didn't. Maybe when he was swinging, I had an issue with, but then like the way he moves has kind of always been awkward. Like he didn't do a lot of like too much acrobatics in the original show.
yeah, yeah,
Like a lot of people bring up this, I'm like, yeah, I feel like that's just like swinging from one end to the other, not like Spider-Man kind of swing where he kind of tends to do
hmm
in the comics,
yeah,
because that would look a little more goofier, especially with like someone like Daredevil.
yeah, yeah,
But I think the one I do kind of agree with, and I agree with it to an extent, is the one shot fight scene. Mostly because the background is kind of you can tell that this is all a set, and it kind of takes you out of it because the way everyone moves, it moves kind of like you know,
everybody has their marks, right?
yeah,
Of like, okay, I need to do this here in this specific moment. It's like one of those, which I think has always been kind of like the one issue with like trying to do one shots like that is that um, like when they're done really well, like it's like it feels like oh my god that's so seamless, that sort of thing. But when they're done really poorly, like, it's like you can tell like the actors are just waiting for their time. Like probably somebody off screen or whatever is like signaling them to like now do this or like this you do that or whatever. It's funny enough that reminds me of that one sequence from the Avatar movie, not the Blue Cat people one, the Last Airbender one. I think it was when Aang's escaping that Fire Nation prison with Zuko,
yeah,
the
yeah,
spirit.
yeah, yeah.
There's that moment where like he's just standing like it has like a one shot vibe to it, but like it's very clear like the actor playing Aang is just going to one spot, waiting, and then doing his cue, and then like run to another
Mhm.
spot. Like they're all just like waiting, and then like oh you go, you know. Which I mean
Yeah.
I get why you know that sort of has a similar feeling to what we saw in this sequence here. Because but that's the I guess that's the always the risk when you do one shots, and obviously,
Mhm.
granted, I'm not sure if it's probably definitely not the same like people that directed the first series, right?
No, no, no,
So
different people.
so you can only
I think it's just also because like the background is so it's colored in a way where and like the way that everyone moves just kind of makes it very obvious it's green screen.
yeah
Because the choreography is actually not that bad.
yeah, for what it's worth, especially in the second, like the fight scene in like the end of the second episode, like
Mm.
it's all solid choreography there too. It's just I guess the way that was sort of shot, I
Though
think.
I will argue that the second episode the choreography is good. It's just edited really weird.
Yeah, yeah, I think I can understand where you're going from that.
Yeah,
There's some.
and I'm not gonna defend the original series for being like peak, fight scene editing, because there's always in that a couple times where someone will edit a fight scene really weirdly. Because I remember when that second episode fight scene came out, everyone was like, guys, don't you remember the one where he fought Kingpin in the end of season one?
Yeah, because I think people, because I think that is something I mentioned before, like before we started recording.
Mm.
With the first season, everybody remembers the one the hallway fight scene. I
Mm.
think that's half the reason why I think a ton of like heck I think some of the other Marvel Netflix shows tried doing their own take on like a one shot like hallway scene or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like it's like I think everybody kind of remembers that like being the big thing from the original Daredevil series,
Yeah.
right? And then it's kind of like like it conflates all the other scenes that may or may not have been like as were kind of just all right.
You know what's funny about that first hallway scene? A lot of times they're being like they're hiding.
Yeah, and that was and they worked it to their advantage,
Yeah, because
right?
like it just kept going into the doorway. Because I remember that fight scene vividly.
Yeah.
And like as they're going into it, Daredevil or whoever would just like pop out of the through the door at random.
Yeah, you would hear like shit happening in off screen, and but at the same time that works because the audience also can kind of just visualize in their brain what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like it's a good way of like essentially not having to cut, or like you could probably sneakily cut it
Yeah.
because you're holding on on a single image at that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you probably couldn't really tell unless it's like a jarring like
Yeah.
different cut or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um,
But anyways, the fight scene I think itself is very tenseful. As much as like awkward as it is, it's very tense because at that moment, Daredevil is fighting Bullseye, who just shot Foggy,
yeah.
and that I've heard rumors that they were gonna kill Foggy. I didn't. I was hoping it wouldn't, and then they did. And I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I kind of think they're cooking.
Yeah, I heard rumors on the social medias, the
Mhm.
tweeters and all that stuff about like some like because I think even before then there was like some discussions from Charlie Cox being like the writing team made a decision that we felt very strongly about, but ultimately we kind of just went for it or something like that,
Mhm.
right? Where it's like, and then you hear reports like somebody important is going to get axed, and it's like I mean that'd be kind of
Eh,
crazy. And at first I did think maybe it was Foggy, maybe it was me, Karen. That'd be kind of crazy. But then you hear, I think there was like a report, news about like both of their actors being coming in to the second season. So I was
Mhm.
like, no way, right? Like that can't be right. Like how are they gonna be in the second season if one of them is dead or whatever? And then boom. Because I think you told me before I watched the episodes, like, yeah, that first 50 minutes, it's gonna be interesting for you. It's like, how so? And then start watching, and I'm like, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, Jesus. um, but I mean, it's one of those like moves that like I definitely understand why like people are gonna be angry about it because obviously Foggy himself is a very important character, especially from the original series. You know,
He's always been a supportive character for Matt throughout so many of his stories, from like him just being his fellow lawyer best friend to like knowing his secret identity.
uh-huh.
Because I remember, I think it was before the Chip Zdarsky run. I think it was one where Daredevil was like kind of knocked around, and Foggy's there to help him up.
Mhm.
And like that's always one of the things that I really enjoyed about his character. And then the show also they give him like it made him really likable as well.
Yeah.
Like you understood the friendship, so like on paper what they're trying to do with that character is that he's kind of, and some people say like they already did this already, but like I mean this is Daredevil, he'll do it like 1,000 times. because it's always conflicted about his morality about the situation.
Hmm.
Because Matt is a devout Catholic as much as how bad he is about it.
Yeah, and that has always been part of Daredevil's character.
Yeah.
Is that sort of line between being a good, devout Christian, but also having to deal with his want and need of serving justice to the point where he dresses up as a vigilante. It is truly Daredevil himself as a character is just a dichotomy of
Mhm.
his whole character is just dichotomy when you think about it, right? He is a blind lawyer who dresses up as a devil at night to serve out justice. He serves justice both in the courtroom and on the streets, which is definitely opposed
Mhm.
because it's
And also the fact that he is a man of faith and yet dresses as the devil.
yeah, and happens to get do some pretty brutal things to
Mhm.
criminals on occasion.
He might have to do things that would be against his code of ethics.
Yeah.
And it's always more of like how can he go in a way where it won't affect that, right? Or like what's the best way to go about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you're Chip Zdarsky, you give him some badass lines, like when he was fought against the U.S. agent, where he's like, "If you made peace with God, then he wouldn't have sent the devil." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yo,
Yeah.
let's go, Chip." Love that man. Uh, but for here, what I really like is that it kind of goes into the idea of the title, Born Again, right? He a line was crossed, and he feels like he can't really do it anymore. Cause, and it's understandable that he's a man of faith. He literally, I wouldn't even say yeeted or like threw him off the the building, but what he does to Bullseye at the end of that sequence, it's just so like like end point, like period.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm done. My best friend is dead.
Yeah. For
like the,
seemingly no reason, because
yeah.
Bullseye does not give an explanation. He doesn't even even at court, he doesn't even say why he did it.
If if I'm being honest, that is the most Bullseye thing ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of people are like, well, that's very in Bullseye's character. It's like I just did it because I felt like it, And granted, this probably something that's talked about in season 3 when Bullseye shows up of the original show,
Mhm.
right? Like, I'm just gonna ask this right now since I haven't seen it. Does Bullseye know Daredevil's secret identity, or do you not remember?
I want to say he knows by association, by like he's smart. I would say he's maybe smart enough to
Figure it out.
figure it out
Okay.
because that whole point of that one is that Kingpin kind of already knows.
Who Daredevil is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is very true in this show, by the way.
Mhm. And so from there, you know,
Yeah.
Bullseye should be able to pinpoint. I'm not saying he's like this. He's supposed to be smart, but if he was, he will figure it out too.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's I mean, to be fair, technically, I guess we jump skip a year or time skip a year, and Matt sort of has working for another law firm. Obviously, he's still torn up about the whole thing. The case, they sentence Bullseye, to prison, that sort of thing. And him and Karen have sort of a bit of falling out
It's
as well.
they're both grieving, and
Mm-hmm.
they both kind of grieve at their own way, even to the effect of others, really. Because the Matt's whole thing is that he not only did he lose his best friend,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of tell he's kind of lost a lot of his feeling to do daredevil-y things because of it.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, the point is also that he just wanted to kill the man. He There's this implication that he hasn't even gone to church.
That is true, because there is a moment in the second episode where he passes by a church and he just listens in to the procession,
Mm.
but he doesn't go in. He's just hanging out on the outside. which definitely I think that would be maybe like him essentially almost crossing the line
Mm.
essentially of like killing somebody, which I think is probably one of his big no's,
Yeah, like
right?
is on his thing.
Yeah, so like the fact that he almost committed essentially doing that. Um,
Which I don't know if the show's gonna like really work hard on it. That would be really interesting, and like it would be poignant to the moments I've been talking about Chips of Darcy because that's like one of the first arcs in his run on Daredevil was like where he accidentally kills a man,
mm-hmm.
and he's like, no, 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 I couldn't have done that,
Right.
and then like he's immediately like, oh, oh God, what have I done? I've killed someone.
Yeah.
It's even funny because in that first volume, the rest of the defenders show up. Is like, Matt, it's okay. I mean, we've done it once ourselves. And he's like, you what?
We had to take. Yeah, I had to. I had to choke out somebody. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
And it's one of those things. I'm like, yeah, no, Matt would still find a way to be upset about it because that's kind of how he is. And honestly, I kind of hope they do. I don't know how they would do it though. That's the question.
Right.
Now, to move on forward, there is like sort of this cool like I don't know how to explain it. It's Ben Urich's niece, BB.
Yeah. Yeah.
She does this really cool, and it's a really cool thing that they're doing. It's like kind of getting the eyewitness, not the eyewitness, but the thoughts of the people.
Yeah. I think she's gonna be a recurring character of like every now and again we'll have like these little sort of moments of her. Like we don't even see her like actually doing the recording. It's just like montages of her like clips. I guess she posts to like her social media or whatever
Hmm.
of her interviewing people on the street, asking them about certain topics like how they felt about Daredevil being gone, all this stuff like do you feel safe in the city, that sort of thing. Which I mean, it kind of leads into the other I guess the big overarching arc of the show as well. Kingpin, you know, becoming running for the mayor of New York City.
Yeah. So while Kingpin was gone doing Echo things, Vanessa was in charge. Has been in charge of the books. She's been doing a really good job, and
Mm-hmm.
now like they're both helping each other out with essentially um, implying rigging of election.
There is a moment, yeah, because I mean, not to be a spoiler about it, but I mean, Kingpin does become the mayor of New York City at the end of the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
He wins the election, and there is a shot. Well, it almost feels Godfather-esque in a way.
Yes.
you know, it's just Kingpin like celebrating with his dudes, and you sort of see Vanessa
In
from
the
up
distance.
in the distance and through that a doorway, sort of just like drinking her glass, just sort of smiling, almost because she's like you said, like she's handling essentially the criminal aspect of of the whole thing.
Well, because Kingpin was gone for that amount of
Yeah,
time.
that she had to sort of take up the reins, and it's a sort of a shot that's like the only way that Kingpin could have possibly won was through rigging, but at the same time you can clearly tell, uh, in this episode, especially in the next episode, that there are quite a few people that are fully on board with uh,
Listen,
Kingpin.
if I had a nickel for as many for like Marvel making essentially something involving current issues, I'd have two, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happening more than once.
I mean, yeah, I guess I can, but at the same time, though,
It's like how are you gonna execute it, right?
yeah, because I was gonna say like it's not necessarily a new concept in comics of the bad guy gains a seat of political power thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you had Lex Luthor becoming president
You
in
also
DC Comics.
had Norman Osborn.
Yeah, I was gonna say Norman Osborn did something similar, right?
Yeah, even in the games, Norman. Well, he's not Green Goblin, but like it's implied that also he's done some shady stuff.
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking about the PS5 game, right,
Mm-hmm.
of Spider-Man, Insomniacs, where like he's the mayor of New York, and like and Doc Ock's like it's because of you, like this is
Yeah, yeah.
and so it's like not like a crazy thing, even real life, that like it's one of those things where, man, it's if you're someone who's trying to avoid it, I can't say I'm not saying much more out of that.
I mean, at the same time though,
It's not that uncommon in comics.
yeah, it's not. Yeah, and it's also it provides an interesting
Mm-hmm.
dilemma for the heroes, right? Like, how do I fight against my villain now that he is essentially a political figure now? Like that
Protected.
protected sort of thing. Like that causes shenanigans. But to be fair, with Kingpin though, there's a very clear like distinction from some people being like not like they're very astute of like, yeah, I don't trust you. Like the chief of police is like, yeah, I don't vibe with you, dude. I know who you are. Like
Does he have an accent or something? Because sometimes the way he would deliver his lines is really weird.
a little bit, I think, but I can't really exactly remember much. But yeah, that's the whole thing. Like clearly, like at the same time though, it's almost like a born again for Wilson Fisk, right? Like he wants to actually do good. He genuinely does feel like he wants to do good things for the city, and Matt and Fisk have a conversation like a diner, sort of just like kind of going like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've changed. I'm no longer Daredevil.
Mm.
I almost crossed the line, and I guess you are trying to change too. It seems, but Matt is obviously not very trusting of Kingpin because
Fair, understandably so.
yeah, and at the same time though, he even mentions like my faith, uh, designs me like people can be redeemed, and hopefully that's the same for you. If not, I'm gonna come for you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a bit of a funny line because Kingpin goes like, and which you is gonna come for me then, and he just kind of smiles.
Yeah, because like again, like you said, the way you said it was so poignant. It's like this is born again not only for Matt but also for Kingpin. But is he truly born again, or
Yeah, because I think there's another. Cause it's interesting too, because Kingpin has a face to face with BB Ulrich, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he even mentions that, like, yeah, I knew Ben Ulrich. He was a good man, a good journalist, and it's like he killed them.
we're all thinking as she's talking to him, the moment where he's choking the life out of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's never. I guess he's never connected to his murder, as far as I remember.
No, he wasn't.
No, yeah, it's from the show, but it's
Or
like
was he? I can't remember now.
no, I don't think so, because they do mention Kingpin like crushing a guy's head in, which
Well, and they treated it like it was a rumor
yeah,
and stuff like that. But like, it wouldn't surprise me if later on they find out that's what happened.
I mean, it would be an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I mean, I was gonna say would that matter, but I mean, I guess it probably would. It would be probably a big scandal for the mayor of New York if he found out that he murdered a guy.
Two, maybe three.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time though, people knew he was the kingpin,
Yeah.
you know. But like it was more like an Al Capone kind of thing, I guess maybe of like
Yeah.
they knew he did stuff, but they could never have
I
concrete evidence
I
to pin it on
remember
him.
now what he was arrested for is because of his like backdoor dealings with the police,
Yeah, I think that might have been it.
the corrupt cops,
Yeah, yeah.
and like how far the corruption went.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that I could totally see that happening, like something similar to happening to that. But no, yeah, this is a very interesting start. Like there's a the other Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio, Daredevil, Charlie Cox are the only real returning characters, and it makes sense because it's kind of more centered around those two in terms of like where are they now with their story, right? Because like we said, they're all dealing with their new stuff. Like I said, born again, but can Kingpin follow through with his changes, especially with like situations with his wife?
Yeah.
Uh, Matt clearly cannot avoid such things because as the story unfolds, we get the introduction of White Tiger.
Yeah. Whose actor I forget his name, but he sadly passed away
Yeah,
of
he
cancer.
sadly passed away of cancer
But I
last
mean,
year.
it's still pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
This rendition of White Tiger. he gets involved in like essentially trying to stop what it seems to be just a random New York fight, and then accidentally kills the guy, and then turns out, oh wait, they're both undercover cops, and now you're going to get in jail.
Blind undercover cops.
Yeah, and it's like, well, all right, what the hell?
Yeah, I know.
And Matt helps out, right? Because that's a very Matt thing to do. And it ultimately kind of leads into maybe some more like shenanigans because these cops, because they're trying to find the guy that they were originally trying to like sort of hustle or whatever, but
because he's essentially the key witness.
And Matt needs to find him.
Yeah, because the whole thing is that they're pointing White Tiger as the person in charge. Like he just suddenly attacked these two cops. It's like no, he was defending someone from two cops.
Yeah.
And so he, as these guys are trying to find and get rid of the guy who's the key witness. The thing that flashed for in front of all the audience was a Punisher tattoo.
Yeah.
Again,
both cops having Punisher tattoos, by the way.
Yeah. Again, question. Well, we might be going somewhere with this, because I mean, people have an issue with like people using the Punisher logo on stuff.
Yeah, in the real world,
yeah.
Just a preface, which I mean, to be fair, I get that, and it actually reminds me of the whatchamacallit. There was a panel from a comic about Punisher basically kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
Of like if I recall correctly, I guess the context he's talking to some cop is like who were like, yeah, we want to be like you or something like that.
Like no.
Yeah, and he's very much like, hey, you're police. You're supposed to uphold the law and protect people. You're not supposed to be doing what I'm doing, which is just murdering dudes.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's a very sort of a thing of like, you guys are meant to protect and serve. What I do is none of that.
No, because I would kill you too.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't even like you guys. So it's like, if you want a hero, look up to Captain America. Don't look up to me.
Yeah, no, like that's very poignant. Like especially because Frank is a fan of Captain America, like a lot of people in Marvel.
Which I can only assume, because I think I forget his name, but the guy that plays Punisher in the Netflix show.
Oh, John Bernthal.
Yeah, John Bernthal. I believe he will be showing up in this show. So
yeah.
I can only expect a similar conversation to happen in this show where there's some dudes. Because I'm gonna be honest, that's gonna be somewhat interesting because one, obviously the implication that there's probably a group of cops in the New York City Police Department that are very pro Punisher and want to be like him. Whether or not that's being supported by like say the chief of police or they're like their own rogue group that do their own thing and they can get away with it because they're cops or whatever. Like, would they be involved? Like, what could be happening there? Like, could they be involved in like maybe hunting down vigilantes, or are they going to be against Kingpin? Because because the chief of police already doesn't really trust Kingpin. Like, a group of guys, that like the Punisher, looking at Kingpin, it's like, hey, this guy was getting with a bunch of shit. Now he's the mayor. Like, let's go after this guy.
No, exactly.
That's gonna be all kinds of very interesting things, and I'm kind of very excited to see where that goes.
There's a lot of things that I kind of want to more touch on, but to put like to help close this out. I think so far these two episodes are very strong. There's like a couple of things that are negatives, but I still feel like this is a very strong show so far. I wouldn't say we're fully back into like the peakness that was Netflix's Daredevil, but at the same time it wouldn't surprise me, not only because it's different people working on it, but it's also been like a certain amount of time. It was never going to be as as perfect, or it doesn't need to be. It still needs to be at the end of the day, what I want is a good show.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people are sort of. I am definitely optimistic, and it does look like there's a interesting story going on here. Obviously, it does kind of hurt with obviously Foggy's death and stuff, but I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Wouldn't it be kind of crazy if we got another character returning from the original show? Another character that's involved with resurrections.
Oh, Elektra.
wouldn't that be kind of fucking weird and insane if Elektra out of nowhere brings back Foggy?
I mean that Marvel doesn't have a Lazarus pit, dude.
I mean,
Okay, shut up.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, no one ever truly is dead in the Marvel universe.
In the comics,
In the comics, obviously, but I mean, there's always a, I don't know.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I think it's. I think so far, what I want to see is what they're doing with this story. I'm not against changes. I'm not against changing the status quo, but like essentially making sure like there if you're doing this, you got to commit and you got to do something that is worthwhile and interesting. Like that makes me go like, yo, okay, hold up now. That might be like, and it's kind of sad that we had to lose Foggy, but I feel like if we end up coming out with something good, I'll be alright with it. But like I said, I don't expect it to be like same level as Netflix's because again, different people.
Yeah,
You know.
and I think it'd be unfair to have it be at like expect like that, right?
Mhm.
Considering it is like a new sort of people behind the camera and the writing staff,
Mhm.
but
And they had to change the writing because.
yeah, and that was the thing too. I also remember because originally they pushed it back a bit because they felt that original like story that they came up with wasn't good enough,
Mhm.
and felt a bit off. It didn't feel right,
Especially coming from the two main leads.
Yeah, so it is commendable that they because I think because they got some more like, new people right
Yeah.
after that. So I think it definitely sort of just shows at least the people working behind the scenes are sort of like no, we want to make this show good, you know.
We want to hold up to it, but you know.
At the same time, sort of continue it in our own spin and like in within the
Mm,
MCU, right?
yeah. And we'll see how that turns out. But so far, I'm optimistic. I mean, from what I've seen, a lot of people are loving it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, people. Yeah, I think I'm
Like aside from the stuff that like is obviously the bad, like the really awkward and like bad.
in there's definitely controversy, but I think for the most part, there is seemingly an interesting story being told here.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what matters. 9 episodes, by the way.
And well, yeah, that's about not as long as the Netflix seasons, which was like 13.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good spot, especially since you're getting a season 2, as far as we know, right? Right. So I think that I think I'm excited. I
Yeah.
want to see where this goes.
Alright, guys, we're going to put it into this episode right here. And if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to follow us on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're most active on Instagram, where you'll find a link tree to all the podcasts that we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and all the like. And you'll find a link to the YouTube where all you other listeners out there can put a face to the voice. And if you enjoy what you heard, be sure to follow us there as well. Because I have a form of Patreon, form of support. And yeah, Daredevil's back.
You've
I'm
been
happy.
born again, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people were saying, is it tied to like the Born Again comic? I'm like, no.
Nah, they pulled an Age of Ultron here.
Yeah.
Right. It's like it's a cool title.
Yeah.
It's obviously one. It's symbolic of probably what's happening in the story, but also it's like yeah, Daredevil, the show is back, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been me, your boy Eli.
To me, Joe.
You guys have a good one. Peace.